Do you not think that's an extent partially because of the historical events that have happened, but also because the indoctrination and propaganda machine that Putin has spent so long
Isn't
developing?
there another piece that we human beings always like to blame other people rather than looking at ourselves? So all across Europe and the United States, we're all dumping on immigrants. And I got it. You want to have legal immigration to keep track of who's coming and going. I suspect the fundamental problem in the United States is truly the tax code. I could be wrong about that diagnosis, but I suspect that's it. And whom you're funneling money to and whom you're denying it to. And if the richest people don't pay for any of the infrastructure, then the poorer people have to. And not getting the budget more into balance. I think it's probably more on those lines. And so you externalize it on other people, or you say the Europeans are dragging us down. It's all this money we had to pay for alliances with Europe. And then you have far right across Europe playing similar narratives. This is very human.
This is The Global Gambit.
Okay, but this leads me to a broader point, which is, I don't know if you read things like the National Security Strategy, not that I'm really nerdy and I read all of it, but this is a demonstration of the strategic vision that Trump seems to have for the world, right?
It's continentalist. He's a real estate man, right? He sees seriously, right? He's all about developing properties and taking territory. It's anachronistic. It is the original way countries organize themselves as continental. You have a big army, you go take things, or you beat up anyone who tries to take your stuff. And it was the Industrial Revolution and then post-World War II institution building that made the maritime paradigm of we are all going to compound wealth an alternative. And it was fabulous. And it remains fabulous. And Europe will keep it going. The United States apparently is doing a timeout, which will hurt us profoundly. But you all are going to use it as an impetus to improve your own institutions. It'll make you stronger, and we're making ourselves weaker, the United Americans.
Sure, we're seeing a rejection of globalism, globalization towards regional blocs, these spheres of influence. But do you not think that there is a deeper thing here, that the Americans are divvying up the world with the Chinese and the Russians, even though he's trying to go against
We
the
don't
Russians?
know. That's one speculation, is that the three guys got together and said, you get this, you get that, you get that. Okay. Who knows? Continentalists often divvy things up, but they rarely stick to it long term. They tend to try to poach each other's stuff, right?
Well,
I mean, you
okay,
can just
another
look at
element
it over
is
history.
sure, but another angle of this then that contributes to it is the rejection, or shall we say, exposure of international law, right? This whole idea that rule of law,
That's
liberal
maritime.
democracies.
That's maritime. Continentalist is it's rather like a Roman Empire. So they developed the Roman code, but it only applies to the Roman Empire, right?
So you're saying that things like international law versus might is right is based on the pure geographical approach, maritime versus land.
No, I'm just saying they're two different world orders. One you've already discussed, dividing everything into spheres of influence. Every sphere has its own legal system, and that goes back to empires. This is a very traditional way of doing things. And then empires often fight with each other because they want to make their own rules universal, or they want to take a big chunk of their neighbor. That's pretty typical. And the World War II generation said this is insane, that the armaments of an industrial age just kill off way too many people. We've done 2 world wars. We're never going to do this again. And we're going to do institutions, and we're going to send diplomats and lawyers rather than soldiers to settle things out. It will be far more efficient. We'll make much more money. And guess what? Post-World War II experience and economic growth demonstrates that they were correct. Right? And you can look at Gaza today, or you can look at the Donbass today, the parts that are occupied by Russia. It also demonstrates they're correct. These places are leveled.
But then, okay, so what about then realpolitik, the idea of alliances and all the things that we've touched on then? What are we looking at here?
What kind of question is that? What are we looking at here? Let's disaggregate your 3 powers. Russia is a shadow of the Soviet Union. It is going to be a vassal state. It already is. It's a vassal state of China, and there's no way they're going to dig their way out of that one anytime soon. There was this wonderful opportunity for Russia. It was very difficult after the implosion of the Soviet Union, but where there was a wonderful opportunity around, I don't know, 2000-ish, when oil prices went way up.
Yep.
That would have been the opportunity to clear out the legal system to make it more conducive for small businesses to be able to make money and to keep their money and not have some protection person trying to take their money, and improving the road system. And instead, Putin rose to power on a diet of wars. He comes to power in the Second Chechen War, leveling Chechnya to keep it. I don't know. And then he does the 2008 war to take Ossetia and Abkhazia from Georgia. And these things are popular in Russia, and the oil prices are going up, so there's money to share with Russians' standard of living going up. But then oil prices take a big reverse, and they reach another peak. I think it's around the time of the 2014 invasion of Ukraine. And there was another peak right after the invasion again, but basically oil prices are down. And Russia lacks the technological ability to develop new oil fields without Western capital. So it's spending all of its money. Well, it's blowing up its money. Its money are going into armaments for Ukraine where they get blown up. And it's just going to make Russia poorer and poorer and poorer. And you look at, I got some statistics that you'd be entertained with. What did I get? So when I was looking for 1980, the Soviet Union had 6 times the GDP of China. And now I'm going to swap to GNP. Today, China has 14 times the GNP of Russia. So Russia's toast. It is a permanent neighbor of China. The Chinese will get whatever it is they need out of Russia.
So when we talk about the shifting balance of power, it still bleeds into what I asked you previously. If America's burning its alliances left, right, and center, but Russia can essentially be a supply state for the Chinese, where does that leave the West, or specifically Europe then? If America's out doing its own thing, it's independent. Like, what do the Europeans do?
Europe has a greater population than the United States, and then if you add in Japan and South Korea and Australia and New Zealand, if you intend to keep cooperating with those places and other places, you have a huge market. Huge population. The sorts of stuff the United States is doing now, we have tremendous problems at home, right? Tremendous economic problems where many Americans feel they can't make rent. And blowing money on military operations in Venezuela does nothing to address those problems. So our own problems in the United States are getting more and more profound as all of this goes on. And you go, well, what's going on with America? What's going on? What's happened? And now I'll give you a hypothesis where I could be totally wrong. Is if you look at the United States, there are, I don't know, a few hundred billionaires. You could probably look up the number, how many exactly there are, and then look at where there's a break in the numbers. Like they're the multi-billionaires, and then there are just the impecunious billionaires. And you look at, well, where did they get their billions? Well, a lot of them are your age or about 10 years older, and they must have gotten these billions in the last 10 or 15 years. And then you go, well, how did that happen? And I would suggest to you it is an indication of a broken tax code. That for someone to acquire that much money suggests they are not paying those who work for them remotely what those who work for them should be paid. Apparently, what is it? I believe Amazon and who else? Walmart workers, I think. Walmart being a big supermarket chain, well, more than that in the United States, that some of them are paid so little they have to get food stamps. So that means that the U.S. government is subsidizing their low wages. I mean, talk about it. You aren't paying taxes and your workers are being subsidized. And one suspects that the tax code has provisions, lots of them, that are for your business, someone else's business, and you make sure that neither party will touch your special tax provision, right? So Americans can go tear each other's eyes out about whatever their culture war solution is and who does or doesn't get into the girls' bathroom or on the girls' soccer team. But it does nothing to stop the grift and the heist. And neither party is touching it.
Well, I think there's a huge bipartisan issue. The Democrats are nowhere. Who's leading them? And the Republicans are, well, you've got the Trump faction, but you've also got traditional Republicans. It's all a disaster, I think, by at
Who
least.
knows? Who knows? But the story is that no one is solving our domestic problems. And it rhymes with the old Soviet Union, which put in a series of superannuated leaders at the end who kept dying in rapid succession. Ours get better health care, so they seem to survive their terms. Yeah, you look at it and go, really? Is this serious?
Is this happening?
Yeah, and then they're not addressing their domestic problems, which are going catastrophic. And you look at the United States has a debt that's just ballooning, and now we're going to double increase our military budget by 50%, but we're going to lower taxes for those who are really wealthy. And I don't. Let's do the basic math on all of this. It doesn't work.
Well,
So I get it. You feel good. You got Maduro in a Manhattan jail, but he's one guy, and he will solve none of this.
Well, we said before we came on air, right, about the relevance of maths as a universal language, but apparently
Yes.
Trump doesn't speak it.
I have no idea. It's but understand that our leaders are a reflection of our societies, right? Russians would like to say, "Oh, it's all Stalin." No, Stalin could not have risen to power in, say, the Netherlands, right? He would not. He would just not be the kind of man that people in the Netherlands would want to have around. But he's a reflection of what Russians were willing to put up with. And just as current leaders in the United States are a reflection of where many Americans are. And tragically, right. And I believe that many of them miss the heist that is ruining them. They want to have some tactical and operational wins that make them feel better. But if these tactical and operational wins destroy the country strategically, we shall all go down together. So that's where education comes in, and providing this is why I'm providing you concepts, and then you can tell me where I'm wrong on all of this. But I think the concepts help analyze what's going on. And we should have frank discussions with each other.
I don't think you're wrong. I think I'm just offering you some alternative points to see how you respond to them.
Poorly.
I mean, no, not at all. I mean, the Minnesota shooting is an encapsulation of, I think, the state of American society right now.
It's such sorrow that we're so quick to kill each other. It is so sad. So profoundly sad. And so what is it going on? It's looking for a crisis, an excuse to kill each other. It's downwardly spiraling if we continue doing this. And she's a mother of 3 children. Incredible. So some big He-Man thinks he's a tough guy because he blows her away at I don't know. We're just quick to shoot people in the United States instead of backing off.
No amount of escalation should have led to that. But
I don't know the details. I truly don't know the details of what the story is. I'll give you a story of another shooting. There's a very famous picture in the Vietnam War. You've probably seen it. I think it's a South Vietnamese high-ranking officer shooting a Viet Cong, a kneeling Viet Cong in the head. And my generation saw this picture. I mean, it's horrendous. And it was and then it was portrayed as the inhumanity of the South Vietnamese. And there was a problem. It turned out that particular Viet Cong had, been burning villages down and blowing away a lot of villagers earlier in the day or the previous day. It doesn't justify what happens, right? But it's the context of what happens. I'm not trying to justify stuff, but I urge people, do not rush to judgment on what exactly happens, but you should have free and fair investigations. And yeah, I don't get why Americans are so busy shooting each other. And they're all itching to hold arms to go blow each other away. Who does that?
No, it's horrible. And I think that one of the points it talks about or leads me to think about is miscalculation and escalation. If
Yep,
we bring it back
that's
to
probably the
foreign affairs,
plan.
if we bring it
Right.
back to foreign affairs, like one of my biggest concerns is about miscalculation. A couple of weeks ago, we had this claim by the Kremlin that Ukraine has targeted Putin's residence.
I get it,
Obviously,
but
it's a
so
false
what?
flag
Even if they had, so what? They've been targeting Zelensky forever,
because
right?
it can be misinterpreted by one, and it leads to an
What
escalation.
interpreted that many people wish Putin were dead? Many Russians wish he were dead. I mean, get a life, buddy.
Certainly. But my point is that if the Russians are believed by Trump and he responds in the way that a lot of Europeans were fearing, what does that entail for Ukraine further down the line? If the Americans really withdraw their funding, any logistical support, you see how the strategic
Oh, I
bleeds into
get
the
it. What you're
operational impact.
witnessing is precipitous American decline unless the United States reverses course. And like blowing your alliance system, who does that? Who wants to go up against bullies alone? That's just and not a failure to respect both blue collar and white collar expertise. A lot of white collar people used to look down their noses at people who had blue collar expertise, and in fact, both terms are ridiculous because everyone wears T-shirts today now anyway. So what's all this collar stuff? But as what's going on now is the payback for dissing all the people who build the bridges, who put in the electricity and do really important things that we cannot run a modern society without, is that now they're dissing the professionals groups of people. So you get someone like Kennedy who knows nothing about, has no pharma degree or anything, trying to tell Americans how the vaccine rollout should be. He just doesn't have the expertise to do it. And we got a lot of people in high places who lack the expertise. It's like the parallel I like to draw is you can have a perfectly good hairdresser, but when you make the hairdresser the car mechanic or vice versa, you're going to have a car that doesn't run and a really bad haircut. And currently that's what's going on. It's precipitous decline. And the question is whether the United States will reverse this or whether, as Toynbee said, civilizations don't die by murder, but by suicide, whether Americans are on a national suicide. I got a whole bunch of them are against assisted death. So I don't know what they think they're doing. But anyway.
I've got a little joke for you. If you may
After this conversation, we need a big joke. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Jim Beam whiskey, and that I do like that one actually. But
Better
so
buy it fast.
in heaven, the police are British, the lovers are French, the cooks are Italian, the mechanics are German, and it's all run by the Swiss. In hell, the cooks are British, the mechanics are French, the lovers are Swiss, the police are German, and it's all run and organized by the Italians. So
you got it wrong. It's the police are like Russians or something. But anyway,
well, we're keeping it. It's from the 1970s. It was when the EEC was a thing, but still, I thought you'd find that funnier. But I wanted to ask you.
I've heard it before.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe the audience will be laughing their heads off as they're watching.
No, I'm an antique, so I probably heard the joke in
That's
real
me
time.
trying to educate someone as wise and educated as you. But
Hardly. I'm a retired professor. I'm nobody special.
Well, Sally, I want to know more about the Russian-Chinese relationship. This is the one thing I wanted to deep dive with you because
my expertise, finally.
There you go. But right now, Russia has it bad. It has a triple header of issues. It has sticky inflation, growth is stagnant, and the economic or the trade policy, specifically oil prices. We mentioned them in passing, but right now they're selling at about what, $34, $36 a barrel? And that's without taking into consideration concessions for the Chinese or the Indians.
Yeah, and high Russian production costs because they can't modernize their facilities.
Yeah, because of the sanctions. So how much is Russia reliant on China at this point without the statistics?
I don't know what the data is. That must be highly secret. Russia has, the Soviet Union lost not all of its empire, but an awful lot of it. And then China plopped the Belt Road Initiative right there, which is a Chinese bid to take over that empire. And then China, this is the real positive about China. They have no interest in a petro economy, right? Because they don't have enough. And so they are going to be the big movers and shakers in the green revolution. And that will be positive for all of us, since the United States is apparently not interested in these things anymore. And China has a mass market for creating green energy sources that it needs itself. And it's been rapidly developing these things. So that is very positive, but it suggests that while oil is going to remain important because you need to use it for certain things, it's not going to be the only energy. It has lost its centrality as the energy source forever, the way coal lost its centrality when you get the oil revolution. And now we're going to go to the next phase, which will be tremendously important. So Russia's problem is it's blown its opportunity to take this period of high oil prices to really make enduring investments. Its leaders were all operationally focused, me staying in power. That's what Vladimir Putin's done very successfully. Instead of how can I make Russia itself more prosperous? And also, the guy isn't well educated, so he knows all his KGB stuff and knows how to send Wagner groups in to cap other people. That would be, and also disinformation. Boy, the Russians are good at that. They've been excellent at it ever since the Bolsheviks, understanding how to use printed word podcasting now, everyone's social media accounts to stir things up. They're all good at that stuff. But fundamentally, it's not making Russia more prosperous. And then with the Ukraine war, a whole bunch of people your age left, right? And they were some of the most promising people Russia had. And now when you're throwing out your business partners from sixth floor windows, it's going to make people even more. How can you be innovative in a country like that? You can't be. So Russia's toast. I can't imagine. Well, Vladimir Putin's going to keep just doubling down till he dies. Obviously, he'll die, as we all will. Who knows whether it'll be like Stalin, where the guy goes thud in the next room and no one opens the door until they go, he must be dead by now. We can now open the door. Literally. And who knows if the story is really true or whether someone put something interesting in his kasha that morning. Unknown.
No, but I think that's true. There was
and then there's going to be a leadership struggle, right? A real fight, no holds barred fight for who becomes the next one. And the next one will take a good deal of time to consolidate their power. And this is the problem with dictatorships. They're incredibly inefficient. They blow through wealth. They suppress growth because no one can be assured that their work, that they'll actually benefit from it, right? There is no rule of law. It's just the despot's law. Whoever they want to kill, that's it. So also, unlike China, Russia doesn't have this vibrant commercial tradition. China always has had one. Since the Silk Road, China's been producing manufacturers, state-of-the-art manufacturers that everyone has coveted. It used to be silks and porcelains manufacturers of those days. And now it's just all manner of appliances and things. I'm sure you've got some in your flat, and they're very good, right? So Russia's toast. They're back to the Mongol yoke. And their only way out of it would be to pull themselves out of Ukraine, pay some reparations, and get back into Europe. That's never going to happen.
Well, as long as Putin's at the helm, you don't think that there
my
could be a
impression is that Russians across Europe are not keen to see Russia lose.
Do you think it's that ingrained that they don't?
I don't know. That was somebody else's assessment, so I don't know. But that was someone else's assessment, is not wanting to see Russia lose. And certainly Russians in Russia who are poor to begin with are going to be really upset when they're told, oh, by the way, you trashed much of Ukraine, and guess what? You owe them. Yeah. I just don't see Russians owning up to what they've done.
But do you not think that's an extent partially because of the historical events that have happened, but also because of the indoctrination and propaganda machine that Putin has spent so long?
Isn't there another piece that we human beings always like to blame other people rather than looking at ourselves? So all across Europe and the United States, we're all dumping on immigrants. And I got it. You want to have legal immigration and keep track of who's coming and going. But if you look at fundamental problems, I suspect the fundamental problem in the United States is truly the tax code. I could be wrong about that diagnosis, but I suspect that's it. In whom you're funneling money to and whom you're denying it to. And if the richest people don't pay for any of the infrastructure, then the poorer people have to. And not getting the budget more into balance. I think it's probably more on those lines. So you externalize it on other people, or you say the Europeans are dragging us down. It's all this money we had to pay for alliances with Europe. And then you have far right across Europe playing similar narratives. This is very human. Instead of owning up, you know what? Most of the problems in each of our societies are problems of our own making or failure to get at.
Sure.
Right. And most people don't want to look at it that way.
No, sure, you can be in denial, but is there not, from a policy standpoint, a degree of truth that Russians have been victims? I'm not trying to deny the victimization attitude that Russians tend to have. Look at Putin and the way he frames things.
Okay.
But do you not think that that's part of the problem?
Okay. I'm going to talk about victimization. And I've repeated, I only have a certain number of stories. So if they get repetitive, I'm one person, I don't have an unlimited life experience. So I was reading Gulag Archipelago when I was on sabbatical in London a couple of years ago. I should have read it when it came out. I didn't. And what struck me as an old person reading that book was the cruelty of Russians to each other. It was not only the camp guards being awful to the prisoners, it was the prisoners being awful to each other. It was people along the way being awful to people in the trains. It was family members being awful to each other, of people coming back and neighbors being awful, right? And being willing to inflict incredible cruelties on each other or ignore that they were going on. The only way you get a gulag system that's nationwide, is because it's got people across the nation making it work at all levels, right? You can selling food to it, doing whatever it is you're doing. And the cruelty is just mind-blowing. And then I'll give you a counter example for the United States. So country with slavery, talk about cruelty. Unbelievable to do that to other human beings. And the legacy of slavery still remains in the United States with profoundly different outcomes of people depending on which side of slavery they sat on, whether they were enslaved or not. But at the end of our Civil War, in which more Americans died than the totality of all our other wars combined, there wasn't a bloodbath in the South against white Southerners. Right? General Lee surrenders at Appomattox. I think he trades in a sword, maybe. His plantation becomes Arlington National Cemetery. Payback is like, okay, this is what you did, buddy. It's a big cemetery now. But people are allowed to return home. And the people who are executed are the people, the commandant of Andersonville, which was a huge prison camp where there were appalling conditions and lots of Union soldiers died. That man's executed, along with the assassins of Abraham Lincoln, including, I don't know, a female tavern, somebody or other who may or may not have been guilty. But that's it. It's a much smaller number. And the United States has many problems. You're seeing them all over the world. But as you think about that level of cruelty to winning versus losing side, compare it to the Russian Civil War. Boy, if the whites were in the village, they butchered the reds. And when the reds were in the village, they butchered the whites. I mean, it's just incredible what went on.
So if this is
different.
Okay, so we've got a pattern here, which is that Russia doesn't seem to be in a place of stability before there's a overthrowing of power or a hostile takeover. Do you think that such a thing could happen with Putin? Either he's pushed from power by the elites.
Oh, he's going to die. So yes, it's definitely going to happen. Whether it's he dies in his bed of a stroke, I mean, man, he's under pressure. You think of who'd be a good candidate for like a massive heart attack, given just the enormous pressure he's under. Or maybe he's just a sociopath that is immune to all sorts of pressure. I have no idea. I'm not a psychiatrist, let alone a medical doctor. But the man's going to die, and there's going to be a free-for-all when he does. That's a guarantee. Therefore, Europeans would be wise to have a full-up plan of what to do on that day and what to do on the next 5 or 10 years before power re-solidifies.
But what about Russia itself? Does it fragment into different
I have
parts?
no idea. Oh, well, or whether China moves on in. And then at what level? Is it just buying off the leader? Unknown.
Well, I realistically, I think the Chinese would take out Manchuria, but I don't think they're necessarily interested in the whole annexing of the Far East or something.
Who knows? You and I don't know. Be cautious about speculation about other people.
Well, I don't think it's speculation. I think it's based on probabilities. I'm a statistician.
That's also speculation. But anyway, it's an educated guess.
Well, certainly there's speculation, there's conjecture, but then there's also based on what is more conceivable than others. I don't think Russia's going to break apart.
Okay, into conceivable. 10 years ago, would you have thought where we are now in the world was remotely conceivable?
Well, I think that's a slightly different question. I think comparing the entire world and the international system is different.
Okay, the U.S. European relationship.
No, of course not.
There we go. So it's hard to know.
But then why bother talking about it at all? If we
because it's understanding what's speculation and what's not. And I mean, I've given you speculation about the U.S. tax code. I don't know that I'm right about that, but I toss it around as food for thought.
At what point does strategic dependence for Russia turn into strategic vulnerability?
I think the strategic dependence is a strategic vulnerability.
So you don't think there comes a point where we're already past the point of too far for Russia? They can't reverse their dependency.
Oh, another concept, pivotal errors. We all make errors, but if you make a pivotal error, it's a term that I cooked up, probably based on somebody else's whatever that I don't even remember. There's no going back to the status quo ante, and the choices following your pivotal error are much worse than the ones you had before going in.